but thank you so much for doing this for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before I get into the questions, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in Spokane and what you will be doing when you go back to Portland?
Yeah, so my name's Sara Roth. I'm the deputy editor of digital for Verify, which is it's a brand that feeds all of the TEGNA stations, and we're launching basically our own company, sort of our own brand, to provide national fact checking for viral claims and to combat misinformation online and on all platforms. Verify is something that TEGNA stations have been doing for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. At the local level, people produce verifies, but it's become so popular that that's why we're launching this national brand. We started a Snapchat show about a year ago, and it's become extremely popular. So TEGNA realized that, you know, there is a need for this and there is a desire for this. So I came on as the deputy editor of digital about a month ago. And my boss, the managing editor, came on about 3 months ago. And so we're taking this team from just a couple of people to about 20 people or so. And we just launched all of our social media. So, you know, our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we are building out our YouTube page. We have Snapchat, and we're going to launch TikTok soon. And then we're launching the new website at the beginning of May. And on Monday, we're starting a newsletter. So that's kind of the expansion that we're doing right now. It's really exciting. So, and before that, I was, when I worked with you at KGW, I was a digital producer, and then I got promoted to a digital investigative reporter doing long form multimedia investigations. And then after that, I was the digital director at Creme 2 News, the CBS station in Spokane, for 2.5 years.
And I'm guessing along with that job title in Spokane, you were one of the people who did the hiring, I would think, for digital, right? Yeah. So most of our questions, not surprisingly, revolve around what it is that people are looking for in a hire, particularly for people right out of school. So the first question is, what sort of things are expected from new hires when it comes to those interested in applying for a web producer position? And a lot of people asked about internships, how many, how necessary, that sort of thing. And then, of course, everybody wants to know, well, how much does this pay?
Well, the pay question is hard because each market is different. So straight out of college, it's important to, if you're trying to get a journalism job straight out of college, and look, I didn't. From my undergrad, I was doing a lot of like free writing, which I don't recommend. And then I went and I got my master's degree, and that's when I was really able to market myself for a job that was like an actual good journalism job. But in college, it's important that you have a good foundation of journalism. So doing a journalism, you know, program, whether it's broadcast, multimedia, digital only, one of those. It's important that you're a very strong writer and that you have a good handle of AP style. So writing is something, as you probably know, it's hard to teach on the job, you know, your ability to be a good writer. You can learn different styles, but to have an ability to write clear, conversational, accurate reporting that's what's going to get you a job. Being a team player and a positive person in the work environment, like no manager wants to hire, even if you have the perfect candidate, if they are abrasive or they turn team members off, then you really don't want that person in your group, because, you know, team dynamics are really important and we all work together, and journalism is like a family. So you're working really closely together in a high pressure environment. It's really important to have positive people. So your attitude will get you far in the hiring process. And a real passion for journalism. So it's really important that you are very well read, you're very up to date on current events. Where do you get your news? It's important to get your news from a variety of sources. So it's fine to get your news from social media, and actually probably a good thing to be really well versed in social media, but to have a critical eye for that, and also to read more traditional news you know, it's, if you're applying for a job at a TV station, please watch television news. So, you know, as a hiring manager, I always like to hear that people are very well versed and that they get their news from a variety of sources. Journalism jobs, I think that the companies are coming around to paying more. It used to historically, right? Like 20 years ago, your first job in a tiny market, you're not making enough money to live at all. I think that is changing, but it really does vary by market. And once you get some experience though, like you can make a decent living. And I can't speak to newspapers as much, but you can make a decent living in television, you know, after a couple of years, you know, your second job, you're feeling a lot more comfortable.
Excellent. Is Spokane considered a starter market as far as digital journalism is concerned?
That's a really good question. Yes. So it used to be like a second market. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably really hard for some of these really tiny towns to attract any talent at all right now. Spokane is the place that strong candidates straight out of college are getting producer jobs, digital and television producer jobs. We, in Spokane, we train really well. So if you have a good person, and that's what I'm talking about with, like, you know, you are basically a good person to mold into a journalist and you're ready, then you know, you are a great candidate for a job in Spokane without much experience. Ideally, you'd have had an internship in college, and we do have an internship program. Internship programs after college are a little bit hard to come by, and they don't pay very well, right? It's like minimum wage. So if you get one, that's great, and it usually transitions into a job pretty quickly. But yeah, Spokane is kind of a starter market. It's technically a mid-size market. Mm-hmm. And for reporters and anchors, it's like usually the second or the third stop. We rarely take reporters straight out of college in Spokane, but producers are high in demand. You can always get a job as a producer. So if you're a good one.
And there's that writing element that goes into both digital and TV producing. So see, I stress the AP style, I stress the writing, and I'm not lying. So, hey, all right. The next question, like I said, was about social media. And you mentioned that. I'm curious if you think social media and digital journalism itself has had a positive impact on storytelling and news, or do you feel the noise of these platforms can take the focus away from important details?
Okay. This is the big question, right? I mean, I think social media is good and bad. And places like Facebook are problematic. I mean, I work for Verify, which combats misinformation online, and it's so popular and important because there's so much misinformation online, and it's hard to fact check it because, you know, people aren't, if you're on social, getting your news from social media, do you know the source? It's really hard to figure out, you know, it's not vetted by journalists, by people who are trained to understand misinformation. So you get these misinformation, that's spreading like wildfire, and people just believe it at face value. So as journalists, our job is to train people to spot misinformation, understand how to fact check it themselves, and then do that fact checking for them. So we're seeing our jobs as journalists is not just to provide information and reporting, but to combat misinformation is just as important for us right now. So social media, it's a new world. It can, the good thing is that, you know, it can expose you to a variety of voices that you wouldn't normally get in traditional media. And I think that that's really important. But the misinformation problem is a huge problem.
And some of when you were talking about Verify before, it sounds like some of the places that you're going are the places that a lot of this misinformation would show up. Is that a specific target that you know, were just like, got to go on the social media, or?
Yeah. So we're trying to combat misinformation where it's happening. So that's a reason that we're going really big on social media. It's a lot of platforms to cover, and our goal is that, you know, when we are combating that misinformation, we're not just posting an article that asks a question, you have to click on the article to get the answer. It's combated in the headline, so that wherever people are seeing it on social media, if they're seeing our articles floating around, they know the answer without having to click out. Because that's one of the big problems with social media, is people just read headlines and they don't actually look into the context.
Right. Excellent. Kind of a related question. What do journalists need to do to stay relevant? And what do you think of news sources like YouTubers that share news?
There are some good YouTubers and some that are problematic. And honestly, as somebody who works in this space, it's really hard to keep up. But to stay relevant, you have to keep up. You have to be knowing what the latest social media is, what the latest news sources are, and you have to constantly be reading news. I mean, if you're going to be a successful journalist, you have to be super passionate about it. And, you know, we work, 40 whatever hours a week, but on my off time, I'm experiencing news. I am reading the news all the time on my phone, on TV, on newspapers, magazines, and you just have to be a voracious consumer of news to stay relevant.
Which actually leads to another question that a student had is, how do you unwind?
This is a problem for journalists. Most of us probably need to be in more therapy than we're in. And the other thing that has happened to me after working in hard news is I'm not as connected with my emotions. And this is, common. So, but I have 2 kids now. And so, I can't take myself too seriously because I've got these little kids who are, learning how to talk and being potty trained and stuff. And so like on my off time, I'm not ruminating over what happened during the day. I'm just trying to manage 2 kids. I am very into running and camping. And I think that those are things that make you take your mind off of, the day. It's really important to have time to separate yourself from the news. So as much as it's important to be a voracious consumer of news, you need to be able to separate and to clear your mind and to just kind of like reset. Otherwise, you'll get boring and also get burnt out. And burnout is a huge problem with journalism. So it's really up to you to figure out how you can manage your own burnout. And journalists have a tendency to work a lot and too much, and it's not necessary. So just make sure to manage your own hours, take breaks. These are things that people need to do to be successful for a long period of time. Because we do, I mean, Carrie, you've seen it, like journalists burn out in their early 30s and they're like, I'm going to go work in PR.
Yes.
And that's fine, but burnout isn't necessary, if you can manage it.
I like that. Burnout isn't necessary. And I think we do need to remember that some more, because we are constantly surrounded by everything. I mean, it's everywhere now. So best advice for getting started. We actually, I think, talked about this for a previous project that I talked with you about, particularly in a new community, things like finding sources and getting yourself situated so that you know what the stories are and how to make contacts and network and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of taking people out to coffee when that's safe again with COVID, right? But having phone conversations with people, when you start in your community, find who the prominent players are, all the public information officers, other government officials, people who run nonprofits, people who you see speaking around town, and just take them out to coffee and, get to know them. Don't go with an agenda. Don't go with like a specific story in mind. Instead, just say, what do I need to know about this community? How can I be helpful? Build that social capital so that when you do have a story, then they are available for you. And establish yourself as a nice person that they can approach.
There's that personality thing again.
Yes, I think being nice is really important. And we do a lot of things that aren't like nice people stuff, like being super annoying about questions. So establishing yourself as like, look, you know, like I'm a nice person who I'm doing my job, as opposed to, you know, like I'm just, you know, really aggressive from the get-go. That's not going to get you very far in terms of reporting.
Kind of a related question. A lot of students have questions or concerns about generating story ideas.
Well, social media is great for that. I think Reddit, each community usually has its own local Reddit channel. Maybe there are several, and there's great story ideas on there from people who are, you know, like really in the know. Facebook groups are really helpful. So people will, you know, there's like specific groups for, I belong to like a gardeners group and like a mom's group and whatever. I think join as many groups as you can, and you can be just like a lurker. And then calling your sources and saying, you know, what is something that's like, if you're interviewing somebody, the last question should always be, you know, what else am I not asking you that I should be? Like, what else should I know? Are there any other stories that we should be reporting on?
Because I know we're going to have to wrap this up relatively soon here. What else should students know about jumping feet first into the digital journalism or any journalism pool?
Well, I think if you are passionate about journalism, it's going to be the most fulfilling thing you can do with your life, and you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. When I finally got into like a real newsroom, I felt these are my people, and you just feel a sense of belonging. And it's wonderful. And you don't mind working a lot because you love your job. So I think that you'll have a really, really robust, exciting life and fulfilling career. And that's, you know, not everybody can say that they love their job and they feel fulfilled by their job. So I think that there's still a lot of great journalism jobs out there. I know it can feel really daunting. I've been on the side of like, how do I even get in? You know, how do I get in at all to get a job and to make money? Like, I don't even know where to start. But I also think if you're trying to get in, people really see a lot in your initiative. So if you have a company that you want to work for, just contact them. If they don't have a job posted yet, like people don't, by the time a job is posted, a lot of places already have a person in mind. So it can be really hard to break in. So you can break in by just starting that conversation. Reach out and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is, you know, I really love what you guys are doing. Can I, you know, meet with you to talk more about like how I would get a job when one comes available? And then you have that relationship, and then you're at the front of the list when there is a job available.
It's that networking.
Networking is so important, and who you know is so important. And that's kind of frustrating because, you know, there's an equity problem with that. But you can make that networking happen. You don't have to already know somebody, you can meet somebody.
And we try to tell our students, hey, you do know somebody. You know, it's the person leading the class, and I know people who know people, and you know, I work with people who know people. So that's one way for us to get started. Anything else? Are we going to see you on TikTok? Is that is there going to be dancing involved? Is that
I'm going to be a behind the scenes person. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of dancing involved, but we'll definitely look at the TikTok trends and, you know, play off of those. So yeah, you'll see Verify on TikTok probably in the next month, but it won't be me.
It won't be you. Is the Verify team actually doing these things, or is it coming from local sources, or is it kind of a combination of both of those?
We are building out a Verify team to do everything ourselves. So the stations will still do their own verifies. They might focus more on local verifies as opposed to national ones, and then we would take the national ones. Once we build out our team with, you know, like multiple video producers and digital producers and hosts, then we're able to turn, you know, like 2 to 3 video stories a day and maybe like 3 to 5 digital stories a day. So you're going to see just a lot more from the national team on that, which will still work with other stations on national and local stories.
Are those people going to be all in Portland, or are they kind of spread out around?
So the main hub is in Washington, D.C. at WUSA,
Okay.
the TEGNA station there. And then Portland is going to have 3 people as kind of the West Coast Bureau, 3 people to start. And then we've got a couple of researchers in Dallas, Texas, and North Carolina. So we're just kind of all over the country right now.
When that brand started, it was like, okay, this is either going to be something that takes off or it's going to totally flop. It'll be one or the other. So it's been fun to see that it's grown, because it was starting right around the time that I left, I think. So yeah, this is it's exciting stuff, and it's exciting to see that it's more digitally based than a lot of the stuff that we usually did at TEGNA. So cool. Anything else you want to say to our students, or about journalism in general, or, you know?
Well, I mean, good luck, and use Carrie as a reference, and anybody that you know in journalism. Like, I love helping young students. It's like, it gives you so much joy. So please reach out to people. Don't feel nervous. And I feel like when you're really young, you feel nervous to make phone calls and send emails and stuff, and just got to get over that. But there is like a really bright future in journalism for young journalists. So don't get discouraged.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for talking with us. It's been great to see you too.
Yeah. And if anybody's interested in television news, please reach out to me, because I can connect you with our corporate recruiter. We have this great program called the Producers in Residence. So it's kind of like an internship, but a little bit better, because it's really paid 2 years of your first producer job, and you get really great training. It's a fabulous program to get into. So yeah, TV news journalism jobs are, it's still a good business model at this point. So I just recommend it.
Excellent. I'm glad they're still doing that program too.
Yeah.
So great. Well, thank you for giving us the time. I know you're a busy person between the work and the potty training and everything else.
Well, anytime really. It has been really busy the last few weeks, because we just launched all of our social media yesterday. So there's a lot going on, but I am happy to talk at any time. And like with any particular students, please pass along my contact info.